Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, losers, shelters, lasers, peasants, vassals, minions, meat sacks. I'm a useful idiot, and today I want to talk about the Clintons, Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, and Chelsea Clinton. And I just wanted to break out kind of a spectrum of the wealth of the Clintons in light of Hillary Clinton's recent statements about how they were broke when they got out of the White House, and how they're, more like ordinary Americans. I can't even say it with a straight face. And the fact that she feels like, well, the Clintons aren't the ones that Americans hate because they're not amongst the very, very wealthy. And that shows you how skewed the view is from the top, and how they can rationalize all this stuff. And also the basic fact that Bill Clinton is a fucking liar, and Hillary Clinton is a fucking liar, and I have to assume that Chelsea Clinton will grow up to be a fucking liar as well. And she'll have a lot to lie about. But let's start looking at some of these numbers, because since the Clintons have left the White House, even though they were flat broke when they got out of the White House, since then they've made $100 million. So that takes a little sting out of this paycheck to paycheck lifestyle that the Clintons have had to endure. And not only that, but they get the presidential pension, and that's averaged almost $1 million a year. So Bill Clinton has gotten $16 million since he left office from U.S. taxpayers, $944,000 just this last year. And so to characterize that as being a point of financial hardship is really pretty laughable every step of the way. But I don't really need to remind everybody about that. But let's assume that they were broke and in debt the day they got out of the White House. Well, so it turns out that 16 days out of office, Bill Clinton gave his first speech to Morgan Stanley for $125,000. So I don't need to remind most people that that's 3 times the median wage in the United States. So the fact that he could make that in roughly an hour says that if he was an ordinary American, he could solve his problems in a matter of a few minutes. And in fact, his first 2 months out of office, Bill Clinton made $1.47 million in speeches, and commands $250,000, $300,000, sometimes $500,000 a speech. And to go back to my original analogy, the idea that somebody who makes more money in one speech than most Americans will make in their lifetime bespeaks of a staggering misperception of reality. So in 2001, the first year out of office, Bill Clinton made $15.6 million in business income, and he also got $152,000 in pension payment, and then dividends from his investments, $172,000, and then wages were $155,000 from his various endeavors. So somebody who makes that kind of money is obviously not broke. And not only that, if you go back and look at some of their assets, just previous to moving out of the White House in 1999, they bought a 5-bedroom home in Chappaqua, and they paid $1.7 million for that. And then a year later, in December 2000, when they moved out of the White House, they bought a 7-bedroom home near Embassy Row in Washington, D.C., some of the most prime real estate on planet Earth. They paid $2.85 million, and in fact put $1 million down. So let's think about that too. If they were broke the day they got out of the White House, that Christmas before they got out of the White House, they managed to cough up $1 million cash to pay for some real estate in the most prime real estate market on planet Earth. So not really too broke. And then an interesting sideline too, as far as this whole setup with and relationship of Citigroup and the Clintons, because not only did Clinton repeal Glass-Steagall, but it also happened to be one of the biggest beneficiaries of that move was Citigroup. And incidentally, Citigroup is the one that set up these mortgages I just discussed. So they got these sweetheart deals. But it gets better than that, because not only did Citigroup set up these mortgages, but Citigroup was one of the banks that hired Bill Clinton to speak to them. So for them to set up a mortgage and then essentially pay for it is how this arrangement worked out. Citigroup coughed up all the money, just handed it over to Bill, and then he buys a house that they set up, give him a sweetheart deal. And also Citigroup ended up giving $5.5 million to the Clinton Global Initiative as well. And if that wasn't enough, Robert Rubin, who was Treasury Secretary under Clinton, served on the Citigroup board. And in 10 years of service to them, he made $115 million. But anyway, I digress. I just wanted to tie in those mortgages, two mortgages, homes they own, and paid cash for. And this, like I say, this is at that same period where they were leaving the White House. And then we also have Hillary, and she got an $8 million advance for her first book, Living History, and there's rumors that she made between $10 and $15 million advance on her second book. And then Hillary also is pretty well known because back in 78, 79, she had a investment deal where she invested $1,000 and turned it into $100,000 in 2 years. And that's what happens when you are rolling with the insiders and you are known to be on the upswing in service to the elites. And so they're more than happy to grease the wheels. And this whole scenario I'm discussing here, with all this money available to these politicians, both before, during, and after their so-called political careers. And the fact is, they become a brand. They become a brand, and therefore everything connected with their image, their speeches, and their name becomes a moneymaker. And therefore, they cash in on it in every sense of the word. And Chelsea is exactly like them. In fact, I think a lot of people are going to be surprised about her connections with all this. So first of all, Chelsea was going to some of the best colleges in the world at the time when the Clintons were supposedly broke. So between 1997 and 2001, Chelsea Clinton went to Stanford. Tuition, room, and board for the years, $28,000. So there's $100,000 that the Clintons coughed up. And then she went to Oxford in 2001 to 2003. So at the moment, the Clintons are Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton are declaring that they were dead broke. They're paying for their daughter to go to one of the most expensive colleges in the world, or one of the most prestigious. I don't know if they're one of the most expensive, Oxford, for 3 years. And so she got a degree at Stanford. She got another degree at Oxford. And then she went back to Oxford again in 2011, got another degree, and then was in residence in New York at that time. And so for 3 years between 2011 and 2014, she went to Oxford through the internet. And so there's more hundreds of thousands of dollars for those four colleges she went to, because then she goes to Columbia in 2010, gets another degree. And then she also ends up working for the College of Columbia, making $60,000 a year. That's another thing about, you'll notice when I talk more about Chelsea Clinton, and this is just like all the other Clintons and all the other politicians and all these bankers, they serve on all these different boards and all these different foundations and for all these different nonprofits and all these different political groups, and do all this consulting work. So they end up having multiple hats they wear that all feed them money. So they're making multiple salaries. And Chelsea Clinton is a great example of that. She's a board member at the IAC, and for that she gets a salary of $300,000 a year. And let's remember, she's only 34 years old, and although she's had a lot of education, this is a lot of money for somebody this age with the kind of experience she has. So she gets $300,000 a year from that. She also gets an annual retainer $50,000, and then also a grant of restricted stock at $250,000. And she's also out on the lecture network, makes $75,000 a speech. Although she has an upcoming speech at the University of Nevada, she's getting paid $225,000 for. And she's also assistant vice provost at the Global Network University at New York University. And her salary there is somewhere between $50,000 and $100,000 a year. And then she also lectures at Columbia, and she's paid somewhere between $50,000 and $100,000 a year for that. Her current net worth is $15 million, and her, like I say, her experience is relative. She worked at McKinney and Company, doing consulting in 2003 in the Avenue Capital Group. She's actually a hedge fund, working for hedge funds, 2006. And she also is on the board for the Clinton Foundation, the School of American Ballet, and the Clinton Global Initiative. And in fact, she says that most of the money from her speeches ends up going to the Clinton Global Initiative and ends up being a tax write-off. And then notably, too, in 2010, she married a hedge fund manager, investment banker, former Goldman Sachs. And so all these people, that's another aspect of these people, the elites and people like the Clintons, very incestual. So not only do they end up marrying politicians and bankers, and look at all the people like Kerry and McCain and the like who have their wives bankroll their political careers, so very advantageous. And so Chelsea Clinton obviously is a good investment for her husband as well, but certainly she said they spent $3 million. And here Chelsea Clinton talks about the fact that she's not really as concerned about money as her parents, but she spent $3 million on her wedding, and her husband live in a $10 million Manhattan apartment. And what a surprise. He is not only a Goldman Sachs, former Goldman Sachs banker and now a hedge fund manager, but he's also the son of a Democratic congressman, mother and father. And not only that, that family has a long history of connection with the Clintons. Because it turns out that Mezvinsky, the father, was a close family friend of the Clintons, and incidentally was convicted of bank fraud, mail fraud, and wire fraud in 2001. He embezzled more than $10 million, and he still owes $9.4 million. But he's out of prison now in 2008. But he is the father of Chelsea Clinton's now husband. So it's almost like a arranged marriage. And then, of course, most people know that Chelsea Clinton is now also a TV personality hired by NBC. And this story has, of course, been very notorious, making $600,000 a year. And like I say, this is on top of all those other salaries that she makes from wearing all these different hats. And that works out to $27,000 a minute for the amount of time that she spent doing shows for NBC, $600,000 a year. So once again, like I say, that's because she is a brand, and therefore for this media outlet, NBC, this is a good investment for them. Not only she a name brand, but also it gets her, gets NBC in good, even better with the political classes. And certainly the Clintons are one of the most powerful political dynasties that the United States has seen in recent. And so there we have it. We have quite a spectacle of wealth and opportunity, and for Hillary to classify them as anywhere remotely near broke at any point in their political careers onward, and certainly the post-White House years is just so beyond belief and so ridiculous. I'm really speechless, which, as all my regulars know, is a unique experience for me. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too.